Ukrainians don't talk about war.
Shalom. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachat, Kodash. I want to give double honors to the apostles, to the elders, the great millstone. Peace, love, honors, and salutations to the hopeful elect. This is redacted. Excuse me. You know, everybody watch Redacted. Really good source of news. You know, these two husband and wife pair. You know, they give out a whole bunch of really, really good information. So, fair use. I don't own the rights to any of, this video. This is strictly for educational purposes only. Just going in the news. And I'm going to play this, then I'm going to add some scriptures to it.
In Ukraine. Now, President Trump promised that he could end the war within days of his presidency, but now we're months later and nothing's happened. Not only that, he's escalating war with Russia, and Russia is making sure that they are ready to rumble. Just this week, they ran tests of their nuclear arsenal after the U.S. canceled a peace summit. Now, the European Union announced a 19th package of...
Excuse me. I have to bring this scripture out. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 3. For when they shall say peace and safety, which is what the Apostle Hard dubbed them Nero 47, have been speaking about. This is what his whole campaign was ran on: peace. And I believe he just went to sign a ceasefire or a peace treaty, with Egypt, which America is not at war with Egypt. Israel is. So, and then not a Jew didn't attend. So the peace and safety that, these people are talking about, especially Nero 47, is nonsense. So the Lord said, what? When they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Right? You're not going to escape World War III. As you could read the title, Medvedev, Trump just declared war on Russia. What happens next? And there's another one that I haven't watched it yet, but break-in bombers deploy against Venezuela. So hey man, it's happening. And Russia has a vested interest in Venezuela. So America, is being dragged into this third world war. So let's continue the video.
Sanctions, and the United States said, we'll do that too, even though they had pulled back on sanctions after the Alaska Peace Summit. Now they're ramping up sanctions. They're saying these sanctions are on Russian oil due to Russia's lack of serious commitment to a peace process. That's interesting because we're going to keep spending money, sending money in war and war weapons into Ukraine, but it's Russia that lacks a serious commitment. Now, interesting.
Yeah, total hypocrisy, man.
The sanctions focus on Russian oil companies, which sounds super tough, but the U.S. doesn't buy any Russian oil, so it's mostly symbolic. What do we make of this? Well, joining us to discuss is Scott Horton, who literally wrote the book about U.S. complicity in the war in Ukraine. He will help us make sense of this. So, Scott, have you been dragged along by any of this peace talks? Is happening, it's not? Were you optimistic about Alaska? Now we're back here again. What do you think this charade is about?
Well, I am, I guess, hopefully pessimistic. Is that a thing? I'm sorry, I really am repeating myself from everybody else's show and whatever. I don't know really what else to say about this other than it's just a tragedy that Donald Trump was inaugurated to begin his second term when he was. I think he really was sincere about wanting to end the war. He didn't really understand how he was going to. He was just betting that he'd be able to through...
And that's the part I wanted to get to. Let me bring that back. Man, hey man, this guy Nero 47, he just talks out his ass, man. He just shits out his mouth. Anything that sounds remotely good is coming out his mouth, but really it's nothing but shit. So hear what he says.
To begin his second term when he was. I think he really was sincere about wanting to end the war. He didn't really understand how he was going to. He was just betting that he'd be able to through force of his personality and hopefully through carrots and promises of normalized relation.
And you notice Trump, he's not as cocky as he was in his first term. You know, excuse me. I wanted to take a screenshot of this because, you know, they're both clearly throwing up Masonic symbols. I think Trump doing the Vesica Pisces and Putin, I don't know what symbol that is, but I'm going to look it up, so I took a screenshot.
That just will figure it out. The problem is he can't figure it out because the situation on the ground is essentially where the Russians are winning slowly. And they
and I believe they said that this guy, Nero, had a meeting with this disgusting PEDO right next to him. And Trump was basically telling him to give up. You can't win that war. You know, it's over. Russia has captured, you know, a great portion of the Ukraine. The land of which was their fucking land, excuse my friend, which was their land in the beginning. You know, Ukraine was ultimately a part of Russia, the USSR. I believe Poland as well. So let me get some scriptures. That's really what I wanted to get there. You know, anybody want to watch it, you know, it's on Redacted, of course. So I had asked, let me get here real quick. Job 20, verse 5. Verse 4. No, it's not this of old, since man was placed upon earth, that the triumphing, what's the triumphing? What's that? Ranah, the ringing, the crying, the shout for joy. You know, they're shouting for joy because they're in rulership. You know? That's why the scriptures tell you, rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom. Thou that dwellest in the land of Uz, the cup shall also pass through unto thee, and thou shalt be drunken. So yeah, they're supposed to be rejoicing right now, man. This is their kingdom. This is as high as you go, Esau. All you so-called white people out there, this is as far as you go in life. Whatever you can do in this life, that's as far as you can go. It says, the triumphing of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite but for a moment, right? So the joy of a hypocrite is but for a moment. Okay? And that moment is over. Don't you see everything that's going on in America? And I went here and I asked chat, I said, why is Israel pulling America into World War III? So chat says, here are some of the key reasons why analysts say Israel's conflict, you know, as the scriptures say, the least of the flock shall draw them out. Israel's conflict escalations are drawing the United States in, and thereby raising the risk of a much larger war, sometimes framed as World War III scenario. None of this is guaranteed, but the dynamics are real. It's all guaranteed, man, because it's prophesied in the scriptures that World War III will happen, which I will get that in a minute. Why the U.S. is being drawn in? It says close strategic partnerships. The U.S. has a long has long provided major diplomatic, military, and financial support to Israel. It says because of that, when Israel is involved in high risk uh, expend high risk or expensive military operation, the U.S. often faces the question of whether it must back Israel, whether by arms, intelligence, or even direct involvement. For example, the U.S. forces have intercepted missiles, drone attacks that were directed at or via Israel's threats. You know, I say, man, part of the reason, never, I ain't gonna say it. It says the United States also has its own interest in regional stability, protecting critical sea lines, uh, allied bases, avoiding large-scale disruption of global commerce. For instance, the Red Sea maritime disruptions meant the U.S. gets involved because it has global trade interests, multiple fronts, and escalations risk. Israel is facing multiple opponents: Hezbollah, Lebanon. Yeah. Look at all the, yo, man, these these people are over there just fighting everybody, man. But they're the victim. Ain't none of these people picked a fight with you. Israel is facing multiple opponents: Hezbollah in Lebanon, Iran, proxy forces, the Houthis in Yemen, in different threats. This raises the risk of conflict spreading beyond the immediate Israel Palestine context. And this is all about the Greater Israel Project, man. They are trying to obtain that blessing that we're gonna get, but they're trying to do that carnally. You know, it says, Salakia, I was thinking about something. Let me scroll down some more, man. Why some analysts say this could lead to a much broader war. It says once a major power like US is drawn in, what might have been a regional conflict, Israel versus its foes, become entangled with allied alliances, multiple fronts, and global stakes: trade, energy, power, major power competition. Spill over fronts, for example, strikes on Iran-backed proxies, Lebanon, Hezbollah, or Houthis attack in the Red Sea could create trigger events involving the U.S. assets or allies. Now, I want to get. Let me see something real quick. No, that's good. That's all I wanted for now. With that, so let's go here. Revelation chapter 9 verse 12. It says, "One woe is past, and behold, there cometh two woes hereafter." Let me see something real quick. One and two. All right, so the date of the first woe is July 28th, 1914, and it lasted to November 11th, 1918. You know, and this was World War One. And they tell you the causes and everything. I just want the dates right now. September 1st, 1939 to September 2nd, 1945. You know, so those were the two woes: World War One, World War Two, and World War Three. Because the scripture said, "Behold, there come one woe is past, World War One, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter." So one woe, World War One, and two world woes, World War II and now World War III, which is we're in the beginning stages. All right. So I think that's pretty much it, man. You know, we're at the brink of World War III. Actually, no, I want to get this. Let me see real quick. Fine. I'll end it with this. Jeremiah 49:20. It says, therefore, hear the counsel of the Lord Yahweh that he have taken against Edom, and his purpose that he have purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. There you go. The least of the flock is those people in Israel calling themselves Jews. So they're going to draw America, aka Babylon the Great, out into that battle, that Third World War. So, Lord, when this is edifying, I'm going to say Shalom.